Dorothy, 28, is standing at her bathroom mirror in Chicago in 1962, holding a flat bottle of beer. Not a party leftover. Step 1 of her Saturday routine. On the counter, a jar of Hellmann's mayonnaise, a silk scarf, and a bowl. The beauty industry of 1962 called most of this embarrassing. Stay until number 1, because what the scientists say now will change what you think you're looking at. Number 12. The weekly wash secret. Dorothy washes her hair exactly once a week, on Saturdays. Not because she is lazy, because in 1962, that was the advice, and the style itself enforced it. Beauty columns of the 1960s, including documented guides for working women of the era, warned explicitly against washing hair more than once a week. Twice, if absolutely necessary. Many middle-class women had their hair washed at the salon during their weekly shampoo and set appointment, a ritual that cost around $3.50, roughly the equivalent of $30 today. Between Saturdays, you pinned, you revived, you resprayed. This sounds like pure inconvenience. It was not. The bouffant hairstyle of the early 1960s, that carefully teased, lacquered structure that Jackie Kennedy made the aspiration of an entire country, could not be built on freshly washed hair. Clean hair is slippery. It collapses. Smooth, sebum-coated hair holds a set. The weekly rhythm wasn't a hygiene shortcut. It was a structural requirement. Here is what the scientists say now. Overwashing strips the natural oil layer from the scalp, and when that protective film is removed, the scalp compensates by producing more oil. The sebum that 1960s women were protecting is the same oil that modern dry shampoo synthetically replicates, sold now in spray cans for $15. The weekly schedule was, by modern dermatological standards, closer to correct than daily washing. Dorothy's Aquanet can is half empty by Thursday. She shakes it. The stiff, sweet chemical smell rises in the small bathroom. She taps the lid back on and goes to bed. The set will hold one more day. The oil she was protecting wasn't just about the structure, it was the foundation for everything that came next. Number 11. The Boar Bristle 100. On the shelf above the sink, there is a boar bristle brush. Dorothy uses it every night. 100 strokes, root to tip, before turning out the light. Her mother told her. The beauty manual said it. It felt like ritual. It was biology. Boar bristle brushes are not like plastic or nylon brushes. The natural bristles, which have a texture closer to human hair than synthetic materials do, actually bond with the sebum sitting on each strand near the scalp and physically carry it down the hair shaft with each stroke. 100 strokes redistributed the natural conditioning oil from root to tip, coating each strand with the same protective film that modern leave-in conditioners are designed to replicate. Modern trichology has confirmed this. Boar bristle brushing stimulates blood circulation at the follicle. It distributes natural oil. It adds detectable luster. The instruction was mocked for generations as vain and fussy and old-fashioned. The mechanism was real. The cold Chicago evening outside the window, the quiet scratch and glide of natural bristles through dry hair, the faint crackle of static against Dorothy's hand, the lamp warm beside the bed. 100 times. She probably never thought of it as a scientific procedure. It was just what you did. The boar bristle brush was doing biology. And in the morning, after those 100 strokes, after the oil had settled overnight into every strand, Dorothy's hair held the set in a way that recently washed hair simply wouldn't, partly because of the oil, partly because of what she added to it from the kitchen. Number 10. The Hellmann's treatment. On Friday evenings, before the Saturday wash, Dorothy brings the jar of Hellmann's mayonnaise from the refrigerator into the bathroom. She scoops it cold, works it into her hair from roots to ends, covers her head with the pale blue shower cap, and goes back to the living room to read for half an hour. The jar goes back in the refrigerator when she's done. It is the treatment she would never mention at the office. The mayonnaise deep conditioning treatment was a widely documented practice among women in the 1950s and 1960s. Not a fringe habit. A known one, passed between women, mentioned in beauty columns, performed on weekends when the smell had time to clear before Monday. Modern cosmetic chemistry has since confirmed what women who used it already knew. Mayonnaise contains 3 active components. Egg protein, which temporarily bonds to damaged sections of the hair shaft, reinforcing weak spots and reducing breakage. Oil, which penetrates the cortex of the hair strand and acts as a true emollient, softening from the inside. Vinegar, the third ingredient in standard commercial mayonnaise, which helps restore the acidic pH balance stripped away by alkaline shampoo. Those three ingredients, protein, oil, acid, are the same three active mechanisms at work in modern protein hair masks, which are currently sold at specialty beauty retailers for $40 to $50 a jar. Dorothy was making one for the cost of a sandwich. The embarrassment of using a condiment as a cosmetic was the only thing keeping it underground. The chemistry was correct all along. The smell of mayo in a small bathroom in winter. The cold slick of it on the scalp, then warming. The tight pull of the shower cap sealed against her forehead. The faint, eggy scent that required 2 shampoos to clear. She rinsed it out, and then she didn't use hot water. Number 9. The cold final rinse. At the end of every shampoo, Dorothy steps back into the spray and turns the dial all the way cold. She holds her breath. The water hits the back of her neck, and she counts to 30. Her mother told her. The beauty column said it. She does it every week. She does not know exactly why. Finishing a hair wash with cold water was documented advice in mid-century beauty guides, including women's handbooks of the period. It was passed down through families and confirmed by hairdressers who noticed that the cold-rinsed clients arrived on Monday with a set that had held through the weekend. Modern trichology is now unambiguous on this point. Cold water causes the overlapping cuticle cells on the hair shaft to contract and lie flat. When those cells close, the strand surface becomes smooth. Smooth strands lie parallel to each other. Parallel strands reflect light evenly. The hair looks glossy. The curl holds. The style lasts. Hot water does the opposite. It lifts the cuticle open. Hair processed in hot water only comes out porous, frizzy, and quick to collapse. This is why modern cuticle-sealing conditioners exist. They are attempting to do chemically what cold water did physically, in 30 seconds, for free. The cold water trick was dismissed for decades as an old wives' tale with no scientific support. Hair researchers now use cuticle contraction as a basic demonstration in the science of hair care. Dorothy was doing it correctly every Saturday morning, eyes closed, breath held, in a 2-bedroom apartment in Chicago. The sharp intake of breath, the water going cold at the back of the neck, the way the hair felt different afterward, smoother, heavier, sealed. She got out, toweled off, opened the beer. Number 8. The flat beer rinse. The bottle was left open overnight on the bathroom counter. That was the instruction. Let it go flat. Let it come to room temperature. Then pour it slowly through freshly washed, cold-rinsed hair before setting the rollers. Flat beer as a setting treatment and shine rinse was a widely documented practice in 1960s home. Beauty. It appeared in beauty columns. Women mentioned it to each other. The smell was the only real complaint. Here is what was in the bottle. Hordine, a protein derived from barley, which temporarily bonds to the outer layer of the hair shaft and creates a coating that adds both body and light reflectivity. B vitamins B1, B2, niacin, which support the surface integrity of the hair strand. The mild acidity of beer, which, like vinegar and cold water, helps smooth the cuticle and seal the outer layer. The protein coating created by the beer is the same effect sought by modern protein-enriched setting lotions. The beauty industry spent the next 20 years developing a product that could deliver those results without the yeasty, grain, and hop smell that lingered in Dorothy's bathroom and, faintly, in her set through the week. The beer wasn't a quirk. It was a protein treatment. The mechanism was real. The yeasty smell cutting through the steam, the slight stickiness of it as Dorothy worked it through damp sections with her fingers, the subtle heaviness in the hair when she started winding the first roller. The smell faded as it dried, mostly. She wound the last roller, tucked the ends, and went to the windowsill for the silk scarf. Number 7, the silk scarf trick. The scarf is pale blue, washed, soft, bought secondhand. Dorothy ties it over the rollers before bed every night the set is in. She sleeps on a neck pillow, shoulders rigid, lying as still as possible. She has an appointment Saturday morning. She cannot let the rollers shift. Women throughout the 1960s slept in their rollers between salon visits. and protected their sets with silk or satin scarves tied over their hair, or on satin pillowcases that reduced friction against the set. This is documented in oral histories, period beauty accounts, and the practical arithmetic of the weekly appointment system. You paid for the set, so you preserved it. Modern sleep beauty science has since done the research. Silk and satin create significantly less friction against hair than cotton does. Cotton pillowcases snag individual strands, causing breakage at the cuticle, disrupting curl pattern, and introducing frizz through the night. The smooth surface of silk allows the hair to slide rather than catch. The curl pattern survives. The style holds. This is now a premium product category. Silk pillowcases are sold today for $40 to $90 each, marketed with the same promise Dorothy's secondhand scarf delivered. The research in cosmetic dermatology confirms the mechanism is real. Dorothy was not being precious about a scarf. She was minimizing friction damage to a style that cost her money and time to build, using the most effective available material for the job. The cool slip of silk against a cheek in the dark. The slight creak as a roller shifts, just once before sleep. The discipline of lying still through the night, so Saturday morning begins ahead. The set was protected. But before she had ever set the rollers, she had to decide whether she was going to keep a secret. Until now, every trick on that bathroom counter lived in private and stayed there. The beer, the mayonnaise, the cold water, the scarf, these were between Dorothy and the mirror. The next tricks crossed a different line. These were the things women did and didn't talk about publicly. Not because the tricks were wrong, because in 1962, being caught doing them said something about who you were. Number 6. The lemon juice lightener. On summer afternoons, in the backyard, or on the fire escape, Dorothy sometimes halves a lemon, squeezes it into a bowl, and works it through her hair before sitting in the sun. She uses an old toothbrush for the pieces around her face. She lets her hair dry in the heat and doesn't mention it. Her younger sister does this more openly. Dorothy is more careful. Lemon juice, applied to hair and activated by sun exposure, was a documented summer beauty practice of the 1960s, popular in magazines directed at teens and young women. The promise was subtle lightening, natural-looking highlights, without a chemical salon service. The science of it works like this. Citric acid in lemon juice opens the hair cuticle when UV light activates the reaction. Once the cuticle is open, the acid gradually breaks down melanin, the pigment that gives hair its color. The process unfolds slowly, over 2 or 3 applications across 2 weeks, and the results are uneven in the way that sunlight itself is uneven. A 2025 study confirmed that citric acid may help strengthen hair that has been damaged by chemical treatments. A 2023 study found that limonene, a compound in immature citrus, may support hair regrowth. The basic lightening mechanism has always been real. The problem in 1962 was not the chemistry. The problem was what the lightening suggested about you. In an era when the Clairol advertising campaign was explicitly designed to give women plausible deniability about coloring their hair because coloring your hair was still associated with vanity and worse, being visibly lighter, by mid-August said something you might not want said. The sticky citrus smell on sun-warm hair. The faint tightening as it dried in the heat. The pale halo of gold that appeared 2 weeks in and was admired quietly, without explanation. The lemon worked in sunlight. The next trick worked in secret. Number 5. The secret under the sink. Behind the cleaning products under the bathroom sink, there is a box. Miss Clairol. Slightly crumpled. The box doesn't go into the trash can in the apartment. It goes in a bag. The bag goes in the garbage 2 blocks away. In 1957, when copywriter Shirley Polikoff wrote the line, "Does she or doesn't she?" Only her hairdresser knows for sure. For Foot, Cone, and Belding's Clairol campaign, she was writing it for a specific reason. The year before, Clairol had surveyed American women about whether they colored their hair. Only 7% said yes. That number was not because few women were doing it. It was because admitting it was a social risk. The Saturday Evening Post has documented the prevailing attitude. A woman who colored her hair was seen as exhibiting unladylike vanity, and in some circles something worse than vanity. Dishonesty, pretension, moral carelessness. The Clairol campaign was not just clever advertising, it was a legal alibi. Only her hairdresser knows for sure gave women a response to the question. The point of the slogan was the deniability. Within a decade of that campaign, the number of American women coloring their hair climbed from 7% to more than 40%. By the late 1960s, some states quietly stopped asking women to list their natural hair color on their driver's licenses. The category had become meaningless. Dorothy colors the gray beginning at her temples. She has done it for 2 years. The sharp ammonia smell has to air out before her husband comes home. The box travels 2 blocks. The trick wasn't in the product. It was in the hiding. The secrecy had a practical architecture. And the next trick was about what happened when you rejected the architecture entirely. Number 4. The clothes iron on the ironing board. Dorothy's niece is 15 in 1966. She is finished with bouffants. She is finished with rollers and weekly sets, and the smell of hairspray in every room. She lays a towel on the ironing board, puts her head down, and asks her friend to press her hair flat with a standard household clothes iron. Dorothy watches. Says nothing. She understands the impulse. Women and girls in the mid to late 1960s rejecting the bouffant and wanting the poker straight hair worn by folk singers and the counterculture sometimes turned to the only household appliance that produced heat and a flat surface. The technique is documented in period photographs and accounts. The risk was genuine. No temperature control, no ceramic plates, no auto shutoff, burns, singed ends, and occasional iron-shaped marks in the hair. One documented workaround involved placing a brown paper bag over the hair as a buffer before pressing. But here is the physics of it. Heat breaks hydrogen bonds in the hair shaft. When those bonds break, the hair can be reshaped. When it cools, the new shape sets. That is the mechanism behind a modern flat iron. The household iron was doing the same thing at the wrong temperature, with the wrong surface, with no protection against damage. The science was correct. The tool was wrong. The hiss of steam, the smell of slightly scorched, damp hair, the flat, warm weight of newly pressed sections cooling against her back, the tension of holding completely still. The ironing board was the DIY solution to a product that didn't exist yet. The next trick was also ahead of the market, but for a completely different reason. Number 3. The orange juice can roller. Dorothy's neighbor across the hall, a woman named June with a bouffant that stays tall through Friday, does not use drugstore rollers. She uses orange juice concentrate cans. Both ends removed with a can opener, rinsed and dried, wound with hair and pinned in place. This is documented. Women with straight hair needing maximum lift use the cans as large diameter rollers for bouffant volume. Women with curly hair use the same cans to produce the looser, smoother wave of the California-influenced straight styles emerging mid-decade. Mental Floss documented this practice in its survey of vintage hairstyling products. Girls cursed with straight hair used rinsed-out cans of frozen orange juice concentrate as makeshift jumbo hair rollers. Here is the engineering. The diameter of the roller determines the diameter of the wave. A small roller produces a tight curl with little volume. A large diameter roller, like a juice concentrate tin, produces a wide, loose wave, the kind that creates the bouffant's characteristic fullness without curl definition. Modern salon-grade jumbo rollers operate on exactly this principle and sell for $25 to $40 a set. The OJ can wasn't resourcefulness, it was engineering. Women were doing roller mechanics by eye, with kitchen materials, before the product category existed. Dorothy uses the drugstore rollers. June's bouffant is measurably taller. The thin edge of a cut-open can, the weight of a full head of them at bedtime, sleeping propped on a neck pillow to avoid flattening the whole structure, the slight creak and shift of tin during the night. The rollers built the structure. What kept the structure in place was the product that turned out to be more dangerous than anyone said at the time. Number 2. The shellac in the can. Dorothy stands in the bathroom with a can of Aqua Net. She holds it 8 inches from the finished set and sprays. The invisible mist settles. She turns her head and sprays again. The surface of the hair stiffens slightly under her fingers. the way a thin coat of lacquer stiffens wood. She will do this again on Wednesday. And on Thursday, she buys another can. By 1964, hairspray had become the top-selling beauty product in North America, outselling even lipstick. Victoria Sharrow documented this in the Encyclopedia of Hair in 1996. Helene Curtis launched SprayNet in 1950, the first commercially named hairspray. Aquanet followed. The brands became household names. The way salt is a household name, so present they stopped being noticed. What nobody mentioned in the ads was the polymer. The original holding agent in those early hairsprays was shellac. Shellac is a resin secreted by female Carya lacca insects, the same material used as a wood finish and a food-grade glaze on certain candies. In hairspray, it was dissolved in alcohol and pressurized into an aerosol. When Dorothy's can hissed, what settled onto her beehive was an insect resin. The can didn't say that. The propellants carried a different concern. Early aerosol hairsprays used chlorofluorocarbons, which were banned after 1979 for damage to the ozone layer. Before the CFC ban, many of the same products used vinyl chloride as a propellant. Vinyl chloride is a known carcinogen linked to liver cancer. According to a report cited in Aerosol Age Trade magazine in April of 1964, levels of vinyl chloride in enclosed salons might already be exceeding safe thresholds. The beauty industry knew about this concern nearly a decade before reformulating. The fumes were strong enough that many salons installed ventilation systems specifically for the hairspray. The sharp chemical hiss, the invisible mist on the mirror, the stiff, slightly crunchy surface of a finished beehive, the sweet lacquer smell that lingered in the room for an hour. The glamour had an ingredient list nobody read aloud. But the most dangerous thing in the 1960s beauty story wasn't in the aerosol can. It was in a different jar, the kind that wasn't even labeled a beauty product. Number 1, the thing that was never meant for hair. Set aside the Aquanet for a moment. Set aside the Miss Clairol box and the mayonnaise in the beer bottle. Consider what women knew by 1962 about what beauty products could do when the ingredients were wrong. Coremlu cream was introduced in 1930 by Cora M. Lubin, whose name the product abbreviates. It was marketed as a revolutionary permanent hair removal solution. Within a year, more than 120,000 jars had been sold. The active ingredient was thallium acetate. Thallium acetate is a rodenticide, rat poison. The American Medical Association described Coremlu in 1932 as a viciously dangerous depilatory and published a series of documented cases of women experiencing thallium poisoning after using it. Intense abdominal pain, respiratory failure, paralysis of the lower limbs, blindness. One documented woman, 26 years old, lost her teeth, her eyesight, her ability to walk, and her job. By 1934, 692 cases of thallium poisoning linked to depilatory products had been documented. At least 31 deaths. When the FDA was consulted, it could not act. Under the law at the time, cosmetics were not regulated as drugs. The agency had no authority over the ingredient list in a beauty product. It could only refer people to the medical journal reporting. Coremlu stayed on the market until enough women sued for damages that the company bankrupted in 1932, the lawsuits winning more than $2.5 million in damages. The product, not the regulation, removed itself. Coremlu's history was on display in Chicago, Dorothy's City, at the 1933 Century of Progress Exposition, in an exhibit the FDA called the Chamber of Horrors. It included Coremlu, alongside other documented dangerous beauty products. That exhibit directly contributed to the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1938, which gave regulators the authority they had been lacking. Dorothy knew about Coremlu the way women of her generation knew about it, not from reading medical journals, but from mothers who mentioned it. From hairdressers who told women to be careful about anything new and revolutionary, from the knowledge that in their mother's lifetime, the newest product on the market had put women in hospitals. Some of them never came out the same. This is the context that surrounds that bathroom counter in 1962. The flat beer bottle, the Hellman's jar, the cold water tap, the silk scarf, the lemon from the kitchen. These were not accidents of poverty or ignorance. They were informed choices made by women who understood, at a cellular level of inherited caution, that the products with the cleanest advertising and the most revolutionary promises were not always the safest ones. The kitchen was the safer lab. Because they knew the ingredients. They could read them. They had grown up eating them. Modern cosmetic science caught up to the beer protein, to the mayonnaise conditioning, to the cold water cuticle seal, to the silk friction reduction, to the boar bristle oil distribution. Scientists confirmed the mechanisms. Brands reformulated and repackaged them and priced them as innovations. The bathroom counter was there first. The glass jar cool in the hand. The clean, neutral smell of familiar ingredients. The quiet of a Saturday morning in Chicago before the salon appointment. The fluorescent light above the mirror. A woman standing in a housecoat knowing exactly what she was doing, even if no laboratory had confirmed it yet. The beer on Dorothy's counter wasn't improvisation. The mayonnaise wasn't superstition. The cold rinse and the silk scarf and the OJ can weren't quaint workarounds. They were the conclusions of women who had learned from their mothers, from their bodies, from occasionally devastating evidence that the newest product was not always the safest one. The industry caught up. The products followed. The bathroom counter was there first. Go back and look at that counter in 1962. The flat beer bottle, the Hellman's jar, the silk scarf pale in the morning light. None of it looks the same now. If your mother or grandmother kept a jar of something the rest of the family laughed at, or had a trick she swore by that nobody quite understood, leave it in the comments below. Subscribe if this is the kind of history worth keeping. And the next video follows another hidden rule, the kind nobody wrote down, because nobody had to.